Hello, Mark.
Hello, Joey.
We are here, episode 95.
Wow, glad we made it.
Yes. This is all about
valuing your home.
Yep.
When you call us and you say, what's your house worth? These are the steps we take to tell you what your house is actually worth.
An in-depth look at what our process looks like.
Yeah, we go right into it. We tell you everything you need to know. And in the end, you're going to be somewhat of a pro in helping to figure out what your home's worth.
I like it.
All right, enjoy.
Welcome to the Toronto Livings Podcast, a conversation about all things Toronto with a focus on real estate, the culture, and of course, the food.
I'm Mark Savell.
And I'm Joey Virgilio.
And we're realtors with Sage Real Estate, working together as a Toronto Livings team with a focus on helping you buy better, sell higher, and of course, having a little bit of fun along the way. Hello, Joey.
Hello, Mark.
How is it going, good sir?
It's going good.
Episode 95.
We're on episode 95.
I really like this one.
This is a good one.
It's up my alley.
It's informative.
I hope so.
Yeah, this will be informative. And also, good weekend. Good vibes.
Good vibes.
In the air right now.
Well, let's talk about what we're talking about before we get into our good vibes.
Good point.
Okay. We're talking about pricing.
Yes.
This is one of my most favorite parts of our job is coming up with a price for a property and all the kind of background work that goes into it.
Yep.
So I figured a lot of people have been calling about pricing. A lot of people want to know what their house is worth in this market.
Yep.
And I figured we should pull back the curtains and kind of chat about what we look at to determine one's value.
Yes, 100%. This is it's a good topic to go over because it is intensive. Like what we're looking at is not just a quick scope and decide. There's work that goes into it.
Yeah, and I always say it's part science, part art.
Yep.
Because it's not an exact black and white data decision, and it's not just a what does my stomach say type of thing. It's a bit of balance of both, and I like that kind of gray area where
there is definitely an art to it. That's a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, but how was your week, Joey? We'll get into the business stuff in a bit. Let's get into the fun stuff.
Yeah, okay. Because I got an awesome one. I haven't been eating out. Obviously, I've been saying that I've been on the Ramsey train the last little bit.
Yeah.
But yesterday I broke that Ramsey train.
It's okay.
Pretty hard, and well deserved. I think if there was a reason to break it, this was the reason.
Nice.
So if you haven't, since we talked about it last, I think it was last podcast, Zito Pizza pop-up came through, and they officially held their pop-up, their second pop-up.
Right on.
This is an old friend of mine. Chris C is who this is. And shout out, because the pizza was so good. And it was a perfect Sunday. They're doing a pop-up kind of as things are happening on the permit front with another storefront. So they're it's like two businesses kind of working together.
Right on.
And this is Zito Pop-Up and Tiger Baby is the name of the coffee shop that's going to be coming up on College.
Okay. So you put me onto them a couple of weeks ago. You told me it was your buddy and your friend and all this stuff. So I started following him on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's like silence. And then when a pop-up's about to happen, it gets really active.
Yeah, 100%.
And his story, he was showing how he's making the dough. He was letting it sit. There was this entire process. And I don't know. I feel like I don't know if this is like actual, but like I feel like he went to Costco as like a challenge. Like, can I make a good pizza using only Costco ingredients? That's how I interpreted it.
I actually didn't ask him about the Costco. I did see the Costco trip thing, and he was like taking pictures of some of the machines. That he has an uni grill.
Top of the line.
He used to hold pizza parties at his place, and this is him taking it to the streets. And he fermented it for those doughs were homemade, fermented for 3 days. And ready for the actual pop-up day, and the crust was so light. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't like heavy. Like it was done right. I have a good friend of mine who's also super into the science of all this stuff. So he was like, they were talking about hydration levels in the dough, and you guys are on that. You guys are on that level.
Geeking out.
Yeah,
love it.
But no, big shout out. The pizza was delicious. They had 3 specialized pizzas.
Tell me about that.
Gabagold
nice.
Is what I got as my pizza.
You know what that's a play on?
Gabagool
From
Sopranos.
Okay,
definitely. His naming choices are so. I figured out also the Zito
connection,
where the Zito comes from.
Okay,
so Zito is be quiet, or it's
like the Z, shut your mouth,
your mouth type of thing. So he, in his Instagram handle, his last name, which I'm gonna shout out, Chris Creglia is his full name. But you're supposed to pronounce it Crelia.
Okay.
So his Instagram handle is the G is silent. This comes in with
Silence.
There's also the shushing emoji that comes in as his main logo.
That's
and
interesting.
That mixed with his grandfather used to always say that.
Stai te zi.
Shut up and eat.
My nonna, that's when you said that all the time. Stai te zi, shut up. And we used to say, cute little board, close the door. Stai te zi, shut up. Vate dormir, go to bed. The memories. So you had Gaba Gold. What else you had?
So Gaba Gold, smoked ham, pineapple, and then glaze. I think it was pineapple glaze if I'm not mistaken. Mozzarella. It was mouthwater. That was the one I ordered. It was amazing.
Nice.
The mort, pesto, red onion, mortadella, and ricotta. Also amazingly. Everything was really delicious, and then they had a sugo roasted garlic basil, like a little more of a simpler one, but the flavors, everything was so fresh.
I like it.
So shout out, I will definitely be the next one.
Right on.
So worth it.
Right on.
Also shout out, Tiger Baby too. I have to shout out
because what are they about?
They're the coffee shop. So they were offering a couple versions. It was a hot summer day, so we ended up getting affogato.
Oh
my god!
First time?
This would be like my second time.
Okay.
And it was like the Sunday was like like the sun was blazing.
Yeah.
And it was just like hitting the right spot.
Funny you mention that. So affogato, I had one on the weekend at Tironi.
Oh, did you?
That's my favorite place to have one. Not many people know what one is. So for the benefit of the listeners who've never heard of an affogato before, it's basically ice cream with chocolate on top and espresso poured over.
Love it. Yeah.
You mix the three together and your Sunday is just perfected.
Yeah. Just smiles all around.
Yeah, that's amazing. We definitely show me out next time. I want to come.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be telling you.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend, but I definitely need to come to the next one.
Yes, and then tell me how your week was.
Well, the coffee shop. How was the coffee?
Oh, coffee was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I only have the affogato.
Okay, so it's hard to really.
Yeah, it wasn't a judge of like the actual, but again, I have my one friend who's all about like the same science behind all of it, and he was having a conversation with him. He came back and he's like, "That guy knows what he's talking about."
Right on. So it's opening up on college.
And
both of them will be there.
So no, the pop up is going to remain a pop up.
Okay.
I don't know if he's going to go brick and mortar at any point. When he said it, he was like, "I don't think I'm going to do it." So I think he's going to just stay pop ups whenever it happens. It happens.
We got a lot. If he wants to do a pop up at the office, we can make it happen.
Hey man, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
We know a lot of foodies who listen to the show. So, and for a Gaba Gold,
for a Gaba Gold, 100%.
Make it happen.
Tell me about your week.
Yeah, so I had a really good pizza place that I was going to mention, but I feel like the Morts gets more attention than the place I went to. So I'm going to save that.
Okay.
But I went to the Rushton Friday night.
Okay.
Local spot near me, St. Clair and Rushton. We've been going there for years. That place has been a staple. I think they've been around for like 15 plus years. Did I ever tell you about it before? I don't know. Maybe offline. But really good spot right on the corner. They got an outdoor seating area and an indoor seating area. So the summer months, that place is packed. The duck poutine. I'm not a poutine guy. The cheese curds.
Duck poutine.
The duck poutine, they really do a good job there. Steak frites. Adriana S. Big fan of the steak frites. And I get the fish tacos. They do a little bit of everything there.
That sounds solid.
Yeah, the lamb. Our guests had lamb. But why I love the Rushton, or my pro tip if you're going to the Rushton, is skip dessert, go around the back of the restaurant, and you're at Bar Ape.
Oh, okay.
The most mentioned ice cream place on this podcast, Bar Ape.
Yeah.
When we were with clients, I said, no, we got to go for ice cream there. We're not going to have it here. We had, funny you mentioned the Gaba Gold. It was a pineapple and, what did I say it was? A pineapple and coconut twist.
Ooh.
As one of the flavors.
Ooh.
A twist of both. Very refreshing on the hot Friday night. And they also had a strawberry and black pepper.
Weird combo.
Actually works.
Okay.
It works. I was a little bit like, I don't know about this black pepper. And you tasted it was very pungent.
It was potent, yeah.
Yeah, but the sweetness of the strawberry was like, because it's strawberry season here in Ontario. So it was like the perfect melting of the world. Yeah.
This is making me excited about food again.
I'll tell you when it's coming, but my favorite flavor from them is the Ontario blueberry. And that's going to come in towards the end of August.
Okay.
We have to go for that.
Okay.
It is the most like next level flavor.
Okay, done.
But Bar Ape, place to be.
Bar Ape. Have you done Eva's Chimney?
Yeah.
Not a fan?
It's good. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's heavy.
That's like a number. That's one of my.
That's
tops.
your tops. Yeah,
I'm a sucker for churros. Man.
So that's a totally different.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, different thing, but also equally good. But like, I have to split that with Adriana. I can't have a full to myself. It's huge. It's a lot. It's a lot. So the Rushton, 740 St. Clair and Bar Ape. I don't know the address, but it's literally part of the same building. It's like right behind.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So highly suggest it. News you can use. Let's get into that.
Yeah. Okay.
Summer's here.
Summer is here.
Not a lot of news to really report in these summer months, but have you been infected with Love Island?
No, I have. Okay. Luckily, I have not.
Okay, you're safe.
I am safe from Love Island.
Okay,
but not all reality shows, I will say.
What's Molly's?
Molly is Below Deck has been on just like on.
Okay,
it's just been that is the choice.
So I always say this: I feel like Below Deck is a gateway drug to the hardcore reality shows, and Love Island is like the peak,
the top of it.
Oh, it's bad. And Adriana S is so enthralled with the show, and I don't get it because we have very similar taste in shows, but this it's the complete polar opposite. So the equivalent would be like Curse of Oak Island is my show that she's like, you're a loser. Why do you watch that? She won't say I'm a loser, but she's like, I don't like this show. And I'm like, why are you watching Love Island? It is the most...
I can imagine.
But everyone's obsessed with it. I'm so surprised it's not in your household yet.
Yet is a good word to use.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it will. I feel like she's done a couple seasons. I can't remember if there's been.
There has been. This is not new.
Yeah.
And this is what's so shocking to me. I'm like, how come you've never been so enthralled with other Love Islands? And she doesn't give me an answer. Maybe she was and she kept it from me. I don't know.
It was a closeted
secret thing. Yeah. But it's out in the open. She's a Love Island fanatic. And she's not the only one.
Yeah.
There's literally sports bars in the US that women will go to and watch it together.
Love Island night?
Yeah. No, okay. Funny you mention that. It's every night.
Oh, what?
Yeah. It's 6 weeks of this thing.
Oh my God.
We're at episode 20. We're not even at like the 1/3 mark yet.
Oh my. Does it come out once a day?
Every day. Every day. And so it comes out on Peacock in the US first, which is like their Crave. It's a subscription based channel.
Yeah.
So from like 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., Adriana stays off Instagram, so she gets no spoilers because the U.S. people will be teasing what happened. So we have to wait.
Have to stay off the socials.
Yeah. We have to stay up till 11 o'clock.
A sports game.
Oh, it's intense. It's intense, and like women across North America have been completely
enthralled
by the show.
My Frances V is very much a part of the Love Island world.
Oh, she's aware of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, she's in it. Yeah,
she's in it. Okay, yeah. So she knows all about Huda. Huda. Every time Huda's on, I'm like, Huda. Huda's, it's gotten so bad that Love Island at the end of the episode had to put a disclaimer like, these are real people. Please be careful what you write online about them.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. Have you heard like, there's this meme, you must have seen it like, I'm a mommy. A mommy of what? A human what? Mamacita? No, I haven't heard that. That hasn't come across. It's coming on. Your algorithm is now infected.
It just heard you.
You're gonna have Love Island on your algorithm. I'm looking to create a support group. So anyone who's going through this and wants to kind of reach out to someone, I'm available. The helpline is open if your partner is into Love Island. That's all I got for news you can use.
No, that's good. Yeah. The news you could use is Love Island is affecting everybody.
Yes, your relationship, if it hasn't happened yet, you will get it at some point this summer. Guaranteed. It's a lock. All right. Shall we?
Let's do it. Meat and potatoes are
here. Pricing. Let's talk about the most common question I'm asked is, what's my house worth?
Yeah.
And it's probably the most frustrating question asked when it's not backed with context.
Right.
I'll never forget, my dad had this friend. Every time he'd call my dad, he's like, let me speak to Mark. I want to know what my house is worth. To this day, I've never seen this guy's house.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's in Mississauga. Like, isn't that enough to go off of? And it drives me nuts because I have this passion of wanting to give people the value of their home, but without these details, it's like
you can't. Yeah. 100%. There needs to be context.
There has to be context. Yeah. And I've had like 5 conversations in the last 2 weeks with people, randoms who'd called me. This house is on X Street. What's it worth, buddy? Yeah. I'm like, well, tell me a little bit more. And then you give them a ballpark price and like, it's worth more. You're probably right, but until I see it.
This is like we're going off of nothing right now.
Yeah, right? So anyways, we're going to talk about pricing in this episode. This has been something like, since I was a kid, I don't know if you did this. I don't know. I'll just share this story with you and you tell me if you were the same. If I'm just weird. We used to, when we were driving around with my dad's car and whatever, and like when he was driving us around as a kid, I used to always look for sale signs. I would guess the price, write it down, and then go home and try to check it up on the internet. Did you ever do that game?
No, never did that game. That sounds like a great game though.
It's a great game. Yeah. Do it at home if you're bored this summer. Drive around the city, look at places. Now we've got House Sigma and all these other apps.
You can check really quickly.
See how close you are. Yeah. I was shockingly close as a kid.
Yeah.
I was within like $25,000 to $50,000.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So, you were a natural.
I was a natural, born natural. I found what I was supposed to do. But I remember when I got into real estate college being like, can we just fast forward to the pricing part? I'm dying to know how they actually do it.
Yeah.
So in this episode, we're going to tell you how we actually do it.
Yeah, this is funny because I feel like there has been a separation to when the school has changed quite drastically since you've learned to when I learned, and they focus a lot more on a second version of how houses are valued, not so much how the realtors do it. And this is important. They do touch on it. I'll say I was hoping they would go more into it.
Got it.
But I think this is a good one because it is actually like when I started, I was like, tell me everything I need to know about what makes the decision.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be that.
Yeah, no, and I guess we should say this is that like the biggest thing to understand is this is not a science.
Yes,
you use data and stuff from the science realm, and it's not completely an art. It's a bit of both.
It is a bit of both because you have to take the practicality of the actual physical of what exists, and then you have to take it with the temperature of things,
of where the market's at.
Yeah,
there's 100
buyer psychology, and there's a lot more to it.
A lot of factors we're going to get into, and ultimately at the end of the day, pricing is subjective. Your house is worth what someone will pay. It's not necessarily worth what an appraiser comes back at, nor what a realtor tells you their assessment is. It's what someone's willing to pay at that time. And if you think about it, like one house can sell over 50 years from 100K to 2 million.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? No, it's perceived value.
Totally. Yeah.
So
there was a lot of cases during the pandemic when people were going crazy and offers were like, who's going to pay that? Who paid that? And it was, that's what would push that. And then the next comp that came out, the next time the next house came out on that street, they were using that as the main comparable.
Yep.
It's perceived value.
That's right.
Yeah.
At a specific time. Because as we know, 2025, the prices are not the same as they were in COVID.
Totally.
For a lot of areas.
Do you want to get into maybe just describe what, I guess, the two main variations of...
Yeah. So I'm curious. So when I was in school, they taught us the CMA, the Comparative Market Analysis method, which we call the CMA.
Yeah.
But there's two main ones. That's the one realtors use. And the second one is the appraisal. And that's is that what they touched upon?
They did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. It was just the deep dive into how they come up with their pricing was the part that I think they kind of left a little bit lighter on our schooling, at least from my memory of it.
Yeah.
And I learned way more outside of school once it finished.
Of course. Yeah. The real estate course, if you're taking it or if you're thinking of taking it, you use very little from that in the actual day-to-day operations of your business, but it's important you know the base and foundation.
There are the laws and rules that everything's based around. Right. So it is important to it's obviously important. It's
to know the whole circle. Yeah. So basically there's the CMA method, and that's what the realtors use most frequently. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode, but I want to just touch base upon the appraisal path and kind of the difference between the two. So if you're just wanting to know a rough idea of what your home is worth, even before you call up a realtor, you can use a website like House Sigma, Condos, Properties.ca. If you're in the US, Zillow. It will give you and please understand this, a ballpark, a very large ballpark range.
Yes.
This is not a science of what your house is worth.
This is with a big asterisk to say this is a starting point.
Starting point, exactly. It gives you a kind of, okay, well, I know I'm worth over $1 million or I'm under, or whatever it is. It gives you just a rough estimate.
Yeah.
When you call up the realtor, you're going to get a much more precise estimate. And when I give my evaluations, assuming it's a house over $1 million, I try to get it within 50,000.
Yeah.
That this is the range to expect, somewhere in here. And that's just going off the limited information I have. Once we kind of sit down, we can get a little bit more specific. But first step, you're going to call a realtor. They're going to give you their CMA, Comparative Market Analysis.
Yeah.
The appraisal, you're going to want that if you're going through a divorce, an estate sale. If you have siblings fighting over the value of mom and dad's house, you're probably going to want an official record and report. And that is, I think, the main difference. The realtor version is more informal, whereas an appraiser's is more formal.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Also, this is something that lenders will require.
Correct.
A lot of the times.
Correct.
And the lenders, appraisals have three very specific, we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but appraisals have three different ways of coming up with the value of a house. But again, they're a lot more by the book of how they do it. It is a formal process of what they follow.
That's right. Yeah. And because this can be used in a court, if a case requires a specific valuation, they're going to take most times out of not the appraiser's value versus a realtor's value.
Yep.
Because there's just a lot more on the line when an appraiser does it. And there's we're not going to get into the depth of why an appraiser is different, but basically that's what you need to know. The realtor is going to give you an informal and the appraiser is formal.
Yep, that's perfect.
Maybe we should use this as a time to talk about the three different ways that they come up with
Let's do it.
Evaluating for an appraiser. And then we're going to put that to bed and we're just going to focus on what a realtor will do.
100%. Okay, so I think the first thing is, and probably the most common thing is, it overlaps with the way that realtors do it.
Right.
Which is it's a CMA. They're doing a direct comparison approach.
Yeah. The names are a little bit different, but the spirit and the context in which they follow is pretty much the same.
They're going to take a look at what has sold in the neighborhood recently. They're going to use those and judge off of, whatever upgrades or if the lot sizes. They're going to take over all the features and kind of sort out whether or not, your house is what your house is worth.
They'll make adjustments whether you have improvements or you're less than the kind of market value data, and they put it together in a nice report, and they say, within this amount of money, this is what your place is worth.
Yep. Second approach.
Yeah. Do you want me to get into it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the cost approach. So this is more for insurance purposes. If there's a fire, if a house is demolished, stuff along those lines. If you're selling a brand new pre-built house, you kind of use the cost approach, and it takes into account, literally as the name suggests, what it costs to reproduce the house.
Right.
And that's how they come with a valuation. Now, whether or not a buyer perceives that as its market value, that's a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. But for homes of that nature, the cost approach is used.
Yeah. And then third would be income approach.
Yes.
So this is more on the investment side of things.
Very specific. And go to it. Yeah.
No, I'm just going to say this is very much to do with calculating your rental rates along with vacancy rates and kind of coming up with how much your mortgages and your monthly payments are, and kind of doing a calculation based in that way.
Yeah. So this approach, what I wanted to hone in on is it's more for like multiplexes, apartment buildings, stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
Just because you're buying an investment condo, they wouldn't take the income approach. But if you're buying a sixplex or probably even a triplex or greater, they're going to use the income approach to come up with the value.
Right.
And this is a very interesting issue we have, because I've done a deal. It was a sixplex multiplex. This is about 10, 15 years ago. It was priced at 1.5 million. Mm-hmm. And the appraiser said it's not worth that. Even though your buyer paid it, it's not worth it, because our income approach values it at, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 1.2.
Right.
So there's a gap of 300,000. But you can go down the street, get half the lot size, a builder bungalow, and it would cost you 1.5. But the sixplex, fully built, fully rented, bringing in income, they said the valuation's not there.
So I'm assuming you went to another.
We did. We got another opinion on it.
Yeah.
There was still a shortfall that we had to cover the difference of, and this is one of those hot markets. And fast forward 15 years, he did very well.
Yeah.
It didn't make a difference if you had to cover the difference at the time. But yeah, that's just something that always stuck out to me, is like, what is value?
Right.
And depending on the purpose of the building or the use case of the house, one of these three approaches is what's going to be determining its value.
Yeah. This is important. This is important when it comes, if you're a purchaser, these are important to consider, because this is what realtors look out for.
Yeah.
We look out for the formal approach, because if you want to pay for something and you want to push the boundary, there's that moment of when a realtor is going to say, we have to also be careful, because there might be a shortfall with the appraisal.
That's right.
And in turn, that's money that you're going to have to come up with.
Cover the difference.
To cover the difference, yeah.
It's not happened very commonly, but I think in this downturning market in the last year, I've heard it more so than I ever have in the previous 10 years.
Yep.
Banks were more cautious. They want to make sure they're not over lending. There's no real clear path of which way values are going to go. So for all those reasons, the appraisers have been quite tight with the valuations.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So now that you have a really good breadth of what the two methods are, we're going to stick to the realtor approach. We're going to share kind of what we do to come up with it.
Yeah, totally.
So this is going to be the CMA, Comparative Market Analysis, or for the appraisal side, the direct comparison approach.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of the nice thing, is it's kind of combined into one.
Yeah, they overlap each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think the very first thing that we do whenever we're approaching this is take a look at the actual property itself.
Gather information, and this goes to the phone calls that I've been getting.
Yes.
A lot of them expect sight unseen for me to give them a very precise number, and I won't do it.
Yeah.
There's some agents who may, and that's fine. And in a hot market, there's a lot more leeway where you could be a little bit wrong, and it's okay. But the name of the game is pricing it right in this market.
Yes.
So I will tell them, like, I can give you a rough estimate, but until I can physically walk through your place, what do I know?
Right.
And a prime example is this guy in a very desirable location was telling me all the upgrades the house had. And I asked him one simple question. Do you still have knob and tube? Yeah, but what's the big deal? Well, that can kill the entire deal because you can't get insurance. Now, someone's going to have to go in and rip up all the work you've done to make it pretty. Therefore, your house is not worth what the neighbor's house was.
Yeah.
So these little nuances go a long way.
They do. This is where I think the expertise comes into play.
Right.
That's something that a house won't ask you.
Right.
when they're spitting out their estimates. There's lots of little things about. I mean, location-wise, school districts.
Another big one.
That could be a huge value change.
Yeah, very big Toronto thing.
Yeah, you were telling me even the pocket that's kind of a one street next to the other in your district.
Yeah, right on. So Marley Avenue, Eglinton, and Marley. They've changed it, but if you are east of Marley, you feed into the Forest Hill School Zone. And about 5-10 years ago, the first 30 houses west of Marley still did.
Right.
But house 31 would not filter into it. And I had a house listed that was 45 in.
Right.
So a house that sold 20 in got a really good value, and they thought theirs was the same. But that school district.
That's where the difference lies.
Yep. Something as simple as an invisible line. As Trump says, beautiful border.
Lord. Yeah. So I think the very first thing is, yes, I think evaluating the property in every aspect, school zone, lot size, features and upgrades.
Train tracks, flight paths, hydro wires.
Yes.
There are, I don't want to say thousands, probably hundreds of variables that we'll have to take into account as to why your house may be more valuable or less valuable than the comps in the area.
Yes.
But getting us information, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
And missing certain things could be the difference of big values of money, not knowing that those first 30 homes feed into the Forest Hill School District.
Totally, yeah.
You could misprice a home. I think it was like a $250,000 difference.
Oh, man, that's enormous.
It was quite big.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's and it's the stuff unseen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about. So we've gotten the information from the house. We know what it's all about.
Yeah.
I think the next thing that we do is we look at. I think it's pretty obvious. We look at what's sold.
We compare.
Yeah, we compare to what has actually sold. Not just the number, but there's more to what just sold. There's how long did it take? Did they price reduce? Did what's the temperature of the actual market outside? There is a few things to consider when you're looking at not just the price.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Yeah, and style of homes, like you can't compare a detached 2-story home to a row house.
Yeah.
Maybe a new agent wouldn't know the nuances of that, but any experienced agent will not touch that. And for condo world, it's a very similar thing. You can have 2 buildings side by side.
Oh, that's such a big factor too. Yeah.
Literally, you can throw a baseball from one to the other, and the valuations could be completely different.
Condos especially are very much, they're isolated.
Yeah.
You have to treat them as this is the building.
Exactly.
And if there's a lack of comps in the building, sure, you can start to peel on the outside to get a range, but I wouldn't use that as hard fact to say that this is what this is worth because that one bedroom sold for 600, 700,000. This one's going to be 600.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the nuance there is the condo corps. So you want to look at one condo corp if you're treating a building as is. You can't look at a separate condo corp and say they're apples to apples.
Yep.
One condo corp can have a special assessment, could have a lawsuit, could have a plethora of problems with it, whereas building A has none. So the value is going to be better on that one.
Maintenance fees, period.
Yeah.
You can look at one maintenance fee might be held at a much lower rate. And in turn, you can have a higher value because you can afford the monthlies more. And it just pushes the value up.
The cash flow is better. Absolutely. So in this stage of the process, step 2, we're going to compare apples to apples as close as we can. And you brought up a good point. If there are no apples, maybe you go for like a hybrid, like a apple pear. Something close to it, but not exactly there.
Timelines as well. I think that I want to just bring up the timelines. When you're looking at things that have sold, you also want to make sure you're not looking way back in the past.
That's right.
Timelines are important. I think the closer to, especially the last little bit, usually I think 90 days is an ideal timeline. What has actually sold and physically sold in the last 90 days, not just been up for sale. That is a really important piece. If you start pushing 90 days up to 6 months, I would say you're still kind of in a comfortable spot. You can kind of gauge where things are at. Once you exceed the 6 month mark, that's when you're like, that's really a whole other market.
Right. So what do you do in those situations? Like I just did an appraisal on a or a comparative market analysis on a building that had a sale 2 years ago.
Right.
And that was, and this is where an experienced agent comes in hand. Well, where were we 2 years ago? Well, if you were in the business, it's going to be very hard for you to know where we were at 2 years ago. But this was about 2023, so we were in a softening market, and they achieved one price. Now, because nothing had sold for the last 2 years, we had to do what's called an adjustment.
Right.
And that's where the comparative market analysis, where the nuance of the realtor is so important.
Right.
Because the valuation of a garage to one person might be different to another one. Is it worth $50K? Is it worth $100K? Is it a garden suite garage? Is it not?
Right.
All these things play into factor, and that's where the individual agent has to give an arbitrary number to what it's worth. And that can vary the overall outcome by quite a bit.
Totally, yeah. And this is where the art side of it comes into play.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you can't just be like, that one sold, it had a garage, and this one right next door with the exact same, that's so rare that ever happens.
It's so rare. Yeah. And that's where those nuances come, where that individual agent has that insight. A little pro tip, there used to be, I don't know if they still do it, but pillar to post, the home inspectors, on their website, you could download a pricing guide. And the guide was a really good example of construction costs, hardwood versus carpet, knob and tube replacement. So you could do these adjustments with some market-based pricing in your local area.
Carson Dunlop actually has a free PDF download. Yeah.
There you go.
You can go through, okay, if a furnace lasts, 15 to 20 years, how long, what does it cost to replace it? These still exist. So yeah, 100% look into it. As a buyer, as a shopper, these are things that I'm talking about when we're in the houses.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay, this has another 3 years left. This one is, this furnace is very old. At any day it can die. Factor that extra $4,000 into your price whenever you're thinking
making your
it.
offer.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's really good. I'm going to put it in the show notes. I'll just take a little note down so I remember. So we're gonna have links to both of them if they're available, but you definitely want to check the show notes. It's a really eye-opening thing, and that's really good if you're just doing renovations in your own house and you want to get an idea of what the price should be.
Yep.
At the time, $300 a square foot was a very realistic buildable price. Now you're probably at $500 to $600, and if you're doing luxury, it could be $800 a square foot. So knowing the neighborhoods, knowing the construction costs, all these things play such a big factor into what your house is worth.
Yeah, totally.
And this is why doing these market updates and the market data that we study on a monthly basis does give us that ability to say, like, okay, we know where the market's at in a lot of things. And I will say, like, we're pretty good with our pricing.
Yeah.
Within, like, I don't know, 50,000, and usually on the money of what it's worth.
I totally agree. Yeah. We actually we have a good process on how we value it.
Yeah.
Should we talk about? I want to talk about. Okay, so we first look at what's sold. So we've gotten past that point.
Yeah.
I think the next thing that we look at is what's active. What is your current competition?
I like that.
And that's a really important one. Is I think more than ever, especially in a slow market.
Yeah.
The slower the market, the more important that becomes, because it doesn't really matter what that last one just sold for, because this guy's priced 50,000 less than we are.
Right.
And we're the same layout in, let's call it a condo building. So it is very important that we're paying attention to who's out. These values, if you give you a price and we say, yeah, this is good. We've checked it out from a 90-day stretch, but right before we list, somebody lists 50,000 less than we did.
Yeah.
That number immediately changes. It doesn't wait for, I told you 30 days. So 30 days, it's immediate.
Doesn't that always happen?
Yes.
Like so often you've got your whole game plan put down, and then like a unit, 2 units below you is undercutting you.
Yes.
So
that's been a thing the last little bit.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. This happened to me right now. I've got a condo coming out in St. Clair and Bathurst area. And I saw randomly on Instagram, an agent was in the exact same layout, in the exact same building. And I messaged her. I'm like, are you coming to market?
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I'm like, so are we. We'll wait. We don't want to compete with you. This is our idea of price. What's yours? We were within 20,000 of each other.
Yeah.
Which made sense because mine's a little bit more upgraded. Theirs isn't. But it's literally same view, the unit below, all these different factors. And having that conversation now avoided 2 people competing,
showing up at the same time
and messing up the whole value of where things are at. So
yeah, 100%. I had a listing in Mississauga, and we were like, it was months of planning and preparation. And then it was like the week that we were going to go up and give our shot. There was a house, same builder, just down the street, same square footage, same layout, showed up at the exact same time. And it was like, this changes everything.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why price is so subjective, right? There's so many market conditions that can factor in what something's worth. It's never God's word that it's worth. It's never God's word. Yeah. It's never God's word that it's worth this today.
Yes.
It can always change.
Yeah. It's very important to pay attention. This is active. So it's first sold. Second, we look at what's actually competing with you currently. And then I'm going to bring up what has expired, what didn't sell.
That's very good.
This is another piece of the puzzle that doesn't get shared too often, but it is important to see, like, these guys were listed at this price and they didn't make it to the finish line. So clearly they just weren't priced right, or something was happening there. But usually, I'm going to say 90% of the time, 80% of the time, it's to do with price.
I would agree with that. I would say probably closer to 90%.
Yeah.
When a home sits forever, the question is, well, what's wrong with the home? And I think the general public thinks a lot of nefarious reasons. Maybe there's a leak, there's a flood. 90+% of the time, they just priced it wrong.
It's priced wrong.
Yeah. Pricing, I was going to say something about that. Terminated. What terminated does as well is terminated or expired listings gives you a price ceiling. Mm-hmm. That usually helps determine, well, they tried at that height, couldn't get it, so don't go there, or you're going to get a similar type of response.
Right.
And so now you have what's sold, what's on the market, and what didn't sell. Between those three factors, you start to really hone in on what it's
and shape your and again, I want to put this into play because price is one piece of the puzzle, timing is another.
perfect segue.
So so timing is a big piece of this. So like, if things have, there's the seasonality portion of it, which is when are you planning to hit, and then also when were these guys listed, and was it during a lull, was it during, was there a big black swan headline that came out?
Yeah.
And how long were they on the market for in general before they reduced, before they sat longer? The listings that you see that started at like, say they started at 1.2, came down to 1.1, came down to 1. It's not a great approach to take it that way,
right?
Because your new fresh listing is now feeling that question of what's wrong with it. How come it didn't sell?
Yep.
To look at the days on market, I think is a very important piece.
Yeah. Seasonality and timing is such a funny thing because it's like one of those, I'll share another story. We put up a listing at the shops at Don Mills in March and we had it up for about 5 months. And we had a lot of showings. We had a lot of good feedback, but there's just so much competition that we had to keep reducing our price because people were coming in less, just like you described earlier, and we had to stay competitive. And this is where a good agent will have the hard conversations with the seller. And I reported to my guy every week saying, look, this is what we had or didn't have, and this is what we're up against. We have to stay competitive. And he was fantastic. He listened every step of the way. 4 months on the market, one glorious Sunday, we get 2 offers coming to the table.
I believe that.
The timing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's unreal.
And you see it. We're like, we'll talk. We're like, all of a sudden, things just got busy.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason. We go from 2 weeks of no showings to 10 showings in 1 week.
Yep.
And 2 offers on the Sunday. Why? I don't know.
I swear to God, it's just like something in the air.
Yeah.
It's so weird how fast things shift in the market. This is a little bit of a side, but the rental market,
right?
I've been preaching that the rental market has been slow and you can take our time for so long. And within 1 week, it went from 0 to multiple offers, 24 hours off the market. Yep. Seasonality plays a huge role
because now people are looking for the new school year and all those.
Yeah, you have the summer times hitting. Everyone's okay going out and taking their time. Then nobody wants to deal with bad weather. And yes, the school season is here, so things move quicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Do you know when the worst day to close a deal is?
No.
It was last Friday, June 27th. Well, not the 27th. It's subjective. The last day of the school year is the worst day to close.
Oh,
yeah.
What's the reason for it?
Everyone wants to close on that day.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. It's probably our most busiest closing day in the real estate calendar.
That's so funny.
And so pro tip, try to schedule your closing 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. And don't schedule it in August because a lot of lawyers take off for vacations. But yeah, 2 weeks before the end of the month of June is ideal.
Good to know. Yeah, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. I got burned one year where we got delayed. It wasn't anyone's problem but the banks. They were so overwhelmed. Yeah, right. That the money just wasn't flowing as efficiently as it's supposed to. We closed a day later. It was not a big deal. But now I've noticed in the last couple of years, more lawyers are telling us like, I'm full for that day.
Right.
Please change it, book another day.
Get out of here. Yeah.
So little pro tip there. Okay, so we talked about appraisals and realtor valuations, and just a quick, recap on that. You want to use an appraiser if you're going through divorce, if you're dealing with taxation issues, stuff along those lines. That's when it's time to call in the big boys to get you an actual amount. But the point I want to make with that is appraisals, more often than not, come in below realtor market value.
Right.
And it's not a big mystery as to why. One, they're representing the banks, so they want to be a bit more conservative and have that buffer. Two, they're not factoring any emotional reasons. They don't care if you're divorced or someone passed. It's just, this is purely market data.
Yep.
They take a more science approach, not so much an art approach. And third, they don't factor in commissions.
Right. That's a good point to make.
A lot of people forget that. So whenever I'm telling someone, okay, you've got a family issue, hire an appraiser, keep in mind, put at least a 5% buffer for what the cost of a commission would be.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So just a pro tip from my experience.
That's a little extra. Yeah. That's a plus one.
Sneak in there.
Yeah. That's good.
But with the timing, let's talk about market momentum.
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting. I think this is a good point to make because it really depends. Your strategy, I think, on the pricing really depends on whether the market is climbing, if it's flat, or if it's going down. Mm-hmm. The trick to pricing is trying to target. You're trying to aim for where the market is headed, not. You want to be at where the market is, but you want to, the sweet spot is just ahead of it.
Just ahead of it.
Yeah. So if the market is moving up, you maybe can push that boundary and try to get a little bit higher. If your market is moving down, though, You want to be the best deal in the neighborhood.
Right.
As unfortunate as that sounds, you want to beat it because somebody else is going to take that spot and all you're going to have to do is beat him later.
But that's what happened at the shops at Don Mills. Every time we kept reducing, I would get some random email. The person went by various names. Yeah. Elmer Fudd was one of the names. And they just kept saying, you're killing the values. You don't know what you're doing. You're pricing it wrong. I said, well, show me what's sold.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
So we are discovering where the price is.
Right.
This is the fact of a new building with 60 plus listings. Yes, it's going to be a race to the bottom, unfortunately. And in the end, we did quite well. Only 2 units sold, us and another one. The other one was a penthouse, 27 stories above us, with a den, and they got 5,000 more than we did. So
it's not a bad situation.
We sold.
Yeah.
You can be the 2 that sell or the 58 that sit.
100%.
If you got the time, by all means, you could rent it out. Hey, not an issue with that. But in these type of markets, it is unfortunately a race to the bottom.
Yeah, very much. That's an important piece of it is, decide what you're comfortable with and you can make your decision on that if you have the time and you're okay with it. But a lot of times if you're trying to make things happen quickly, you have to be competitive.
Yeah, you got to be on your feet and kind of move with the market. Be like Wata.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, be like Wata. Everybody, Wata. This is the next point is I think the hardest for sellers to come to terms with. And that's telling or sharing their motivation for why they want to sell.
Right.
It's natural. We all keep our cards close. We don't know if we trust this realtor that we just found online or whatever the case is. So we're not going to tell them, hey, bud, we're divorcing. We need to sell in 2 weeks.
Right.
We want to kind of, they'll often bluff you and, not give you the full story. And that's fine. But at some point, we've got to have a serious conversation about why we're doing it. Because if your secret expectation is to sell in 2 weeks, but you're pricing it like you want to be up for 6 months, you're not going to hit your goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So understanding a seller's motivation is, to me, one of the most important elements that are going to determine what a place is worth.
Right.
And I'll tell you straight, look, you want to sell quick, we are going to have to be more aggressive. If you have time on your side and you could wait it out, yeah, we could try. We could push for the higher end of my valuation. But knowing that helps everything else flow.
Yeah, very much so. And it keeps everybody on the same page as well. Like you don't want to be hiding that fact, and then you're the realtor who's trying to push for you is like, it's important to just be transparent.
Yeah.
I think is what I'm trying to get at, because it doesn't make anybody look good or work well, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Sitting on the market for 3 months is not going to help you achieve a record-breaking price.
Right.
It's very loose science here, but what I kind of use as my gauge is within 20 showings, you should have some strong interest. You should probably have an offer within 25 showings. If you don't, you as a realtor better have some damn good reasons why.
Right.
And this is where following up with each agent saying, hey, what'd you think? What'd you think? What'd you think? And more often than not, you're going to hear price is too high. There's better value out there. And with shops at Don Mills, that's what we were getting a lot of.
Right.
So I had the hardcore data to go back and say, look, we've had 70 plus showings. They all feel like we're priced too high. We need to be more aggressive.
Right.
And I think that's what gave my seller the confidence to be like, it's not just him telling me this, it's the market.
There's the market itself.
That's speaking to me. And so
right. And that's a big piece of the puzzle. You want your realtor is giving you market data. It's not data from from the top of the head.
Right.
It's
backed.
It's tangible. Yeah.
Well, I should say it should be.
Yes.
Yeah. Some agents will just spit off the top of their head, your house is worth this. And that's why they don't have tremendous success. But we back ours up with a full-on report. We show you everything we're discussing in this episode. We tell you how long. We show you what they look like.
Yeah.
Pictures from inside the house. So there's no mystery of what you're up against.
Totally.
Yeah. This is all backed by market data. But this is where the art comes in of, if I know you have a certain deadline, like for example, you have a pre-con project that's closing and you need the money out of this project, then we have to play within those parameters. And I got to be really honest with what your place is worth.
Yeah.
Especially in a market where things are heated up, it's important to know, should we be pricing it for a bidding war, or do we price slightly above market value and negotiate down?
Right.
But I can't tell you that until I know kind of what your motivation is.
Totally.
So having those tough talks with your agent, I think finding someone you can trust is important. Someone who's going to keep your best interest at heart and try to hit a record number for you. And like, for me, it's like, the more I sell it for, the more I make.
Right.
And the argument can be made, but the seller's commission, there's a bit of a variance, like how much money they keep in their pocket versus how much a realtor makes. There's a whole discussion about that. But the point is, if I make a record price for your sale, your neighbors are going to call me.
Yeah.
So I want to get as much for you as possible because I want to get as much business out of this area.
Totally. That's another good point too, is our motivation is not to screw you just to get rid of the house.
Yeah.
It's very much like we're trying, I think most realtors
Sure.
are trying to make a good name for themselves so that they can be the one that gets called
Yep.
for the next one.
Yep.
So yeah, 100% agreed.
Let's talk about the automated valuation models.
Yep.
Big word, simple concept. We're talking about the Sigmas and the Zukasas because a lot of people start with that. Was I looked online, I think my house is worth this.
Yeah.
That's fine. But as you said earlier, that's just a very rough valuation.
Super loose. It's extremely loose.
Yeah.
We don't know that there's House Sigma will take consideration of, okay, what generally sold in the neighborhood? Do you have 3 beds, 2 baths? Cool. You have a parking spot? Great. Here's the general valuation. But like, what if you're right beside the main street? What if what if you do have that what do you call it? Power line.
Hydro lines. Yeah.
Hydro line, like right behind your house.
Or what if you look out to the lake and you have a gorgeous view?
Yeah.
Are they taking that into account?
On the better side of things. Yeah. 100%. This could bump the value.
I did hear a rumor that Zillow was incorporating. It was training the AI bots to read the photos. And if it does see lake, give a valuation and kind of up it and increase it.
Trippy.
Yeah, but then I was like, I'll just put a picture of a lake in the photo.
Let's get some Photoshop.
Yeah, I'll grab some like gold bars. So they're like, oh, there's gold in this house. It's valued more cryptocurrencies. I don't know. The point is, I wouldn't be fully trusting these robots and these algorithms.
No, definitely not quite yet.
Yeah. I won't say which of the companies I looked at, but I did a little, like I was bored one day. So I looked at 10 properties and I tried to say what they sold for versus what their valuation was and what the variance was. I found a 5 to 10% variance that they underpriced these AVM websites.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 5 to 10% was how far they're off. Yeah. And I'll say like that number might not be accurate today. They're probably improving things and the market's always changing.
Yeah.
But that's $1 million house. That's $50,000 to $100,000.
Yeah.
You're leaving on the table.
Wow. I didn't know that was that big of a gap.
I don't know if anyone does. I just was like bored one day. I'm like, oh, let me see what I can find out. Yeah. So just be cautious if you're looking at those. Use those as your base, not as your full thing.
As your core. Yeah. Frequently asked questions?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, you answer.
Okay.
How long would you say a CMA is good for?
I would say it's usually good for about 30 days. There's 60 days on the high end.
30 to 60. Maybe you can squeeze it to 90, but 30 to 60 is that sweet spot. And then you want to kind of ask your realtor for a new one.
Yep.
Whenever someone comes to me and says they're thinking of selling, I say, great, let's start getting the foundation of what it's worth today. Even if you want to sell in 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it is, at least we know today, here's where we stand.
Here's where we're at. Yeah. There's always, I typically I'll do the initial one. And then before we go to market, I just double check to make sure everything's in the same place.
For sure.
Yeah.
And doing that initial one could also tell you like maybe there is room to get you to that target number you want, but you have to replace your kitchen, improve your bathroom, do some landscaping, curb appeal. This gives us time to give you ways to bring better value to your house. And it also sets the ceiling of don't over improve because you're not going to hit this number just by doing these renovations.
Right.
So there's a lot of insight that can be garnered from a CMA, and doing one every 30 to 90 days, let's call it, is ideal.
Yes. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. When should you get a formal appraisal?
A formal appraisal comes if you're going through divorce. Or they're more the legal side of things. Lenders will have them done in order to make sure that they're covering their bases. They're the formal version of it.
Yeah, I'll say this. I get a lot of calls from people wanting to change the status of their home from principal residence to investment property if they're buying a second one because the CRA requires it. I will provide it with them. I'm happy to give them a letter of value on that given date, but you might want to cover your bases and pay the money to get an appraisal and do it that way.
Right.
Appraisals run anywhere. I've seen on the low end $300, on the high end $700, but somewhere in that range. I think it's money well spent to get a polished professional.
Do it. Yeah.
CRA is going to have a tough time challenging an appraiser's valuation of one if they don't feel like the price is worth it.
Totally. Good pro tip.
Do you need to renovate before getting a valuation?
No, but I mean, you can get somebody in to give you guidance on what's actually going to give you value.
Yeah,
I think is the takeaway.
Yeah,
so you can if you want to, but it's not. I wouldn't call it necessary.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think it just helps you understand kind of how much money you should be putting in if you are thinking of selling.
Yep.
And more often than not, I find myself telling people, don't do the renovation.
Right.
If the house has been sitting for 60 years, doing one bathroom isn't going to bring up the value of the house. You're probably going to want to let someone just put their own touch, their own look on it. Maybe a can of paint goes a long way, but above and beyond that, it's
keep it. Yeah, because people also do like to put their own touch. If it is dated to that extent, then 100%.
Yeah, cool. I think that's a pretty in-depth look at it.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot of bases.
We did. Just to kind of wrap it up, it's part science, it's part art. It's not plugging a number in. It's not a set formula. It's one where we look at the market data, but we use our gut feeling based on what we know and what we're experiencing out there.
Yeah.
I would say using a local neighborhood agent is incredibly important.
Yep.
Because they know better than anyone
what's
happening.
What is the temperature?
In that direct area. And I guess just be very open with your agent as to why you're selling. If there's specific timelines, if there's certain motivations, be clear about that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help us understand how to price it. And I would say this also, one other pro tip I forgot to mention. If you're going to do a bidding war, especially in this market, have a backup price discussed before you sign the listing.
That's a good call.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great call.
I see a lot of people pricing their homes super low. They don't get the number they're looking for. And it's like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I'd rather know from step A before we get to step D what the reprice is.
Where we're going to be.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good pro tip.
Yeah, cool.
I
feel good.
Yeah, that's a solid, that's a lot of information. A lot of good information.
Yeah. I guess I'll just say one last thing. If you want to know what your house is worth, you can send us an email. You can contact us and we'll be happy to come take a look.
Absolutely.
Provide you with a beautiful CMA and start the conversation with helping you get your place sold.
Also, if you liked the podcast, might as well hit that like button.
I mean, it doesn't cost you anything.
You could subscribe. That helps us a lot as well.
Yeah.
And leave a comment if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll throw one more on there.
Let's do it.
Share with your crazy uncle who thinks he knows the market.
Yeah.
Let him know. Hey, Unc, have you gone through all these steps? Because my realtor has. I think it's a good conversation to have, and definitely get a realtor involved to get a better sense of what your place is worth.
Love it.
Cool.
All right.
That's it. Episode 95.
Episode 95.
Thanks for listening to the Toronto Living's Real Estate Podcast. You could find more information on how we work over at torontolivings.com. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter to get price reports from over 150 different neighborhoods in the city each and every month.
If you got any value, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you made it this far, thanks for listening.